You know, I was gonna save this video topic till tomorrow, but the San Jose Sharks play a game in a few hours and the Montreal Canadiens have the day off, so I was like, you know what, this is actually a nice time, an open pocket of air to breathe in this topic and dive into what Elliotte Friedman discussed about on today's episode of the 32 Thoughts podcast. Now, as always, I'll leave a link in the description to the podcast itself if you wanted to go to the sources you need to listen to it. Friedman and Bukauskas are trying to run it, I would say. They're trying to get this show going on the road with the departure and absence of Jeff Marek. I think a lot of fans, myself included, are still trying to get used to Kyle Bukauskas, but he's doing a pretty good job. He's a total pro, so that's at the very least great to see. Anyways, we're talking about one very particular idea mentioned by Friedman on the show that goes over a specific name that the Montreal Canadiens might be targeting. There also are a few other Canadiens notes that Friedman went out there and discussed, which I guess you could say is worth bringing up in this video. We'll see. If we have enough time to get into it, we'll get into it. But Elliotte Friedman on 32 Thoughts says that aside from a forward with edge, the Montreal Canadiens are looking for a right-shot D. Who isn't? Friedge wonders about Matt Benning in San Jose, but he has another year left on his deal. Montreal would prefer someone on an expiring contract. So, this is an idea, right? Firstly, let's talk about the right shot D. This coincides very heavily with what we had seen out of other NHL insiders, particularly Pierre LeBrun, Frank Saravalli, and Darren Dreger. They each said at different points throughout the past few days that the Montreal Canadiens are interested in some sort of a defenseman, a right-handed defenseman, maybe a top four guy, who really knows, but right-shot defenseman at the very least, to add on to this team and to just kind of strengthen the depth of their D-core. That's not bad, right? I mean, we spoke about Vancouver in the last video. They're also interested in the right-handed defenseman. They want a top four guy. Utah, interested in the top four guy. A lot of teams going out there and looking for right-handed defensemen, and it's not surprising to see why. They're unicorns in this league. But for Friedman to go out there and label one name in particular, the conversation gets really interesting when you start talking about Matt Benning from the San Jose Sharks. Now, I'll tell you this, the reason Benning stands out to me in particular is because he's the 30-year-old nephew of Vancouver Canucks former GM, Jim Benning. He also has a brother, Michael Benning, who is a prospect drafted by the Florida Panthers, and that is a specific thing that's still kind of there. He was really good in the NCAA, by the way, that Mike Benning. But Matt Benning, 30 years old, 6'1", 203, signed till the end of 25-26, so next season, making $1.25 million a year. Matt Benning, interestingly enough, was the Boston Bruins 6th-round pick in the 2012 draft, 1 year after the Bruins won the Cup, and of course, Benning's uncle, Jim Benning, was a member of that Boston Bruins team all those years ago. I'm not going to suggest anything or come to any conclusions about nepotism or whatever, but I just will say that Boston did employ Jim Benning, who was, I think, in a scouting position at that time. Something like that? I don't know the exact details, but the Bees ended up getting Benning's nephew. He was playing in the NCAA for Northeastern, was pretty alright, I would say, and then found himself in Edmonton, not Boston. He played a few seasons over there as a member of the Oilers and then went over to Nashville and then San Jose, which is where he is right now. Now, he did have a 24-point season with the Sharks in 2022-2023, posting up 77 games too at a -18. The Sharks are so bad that I don't think anybody really needs to think about the minus numbers and use that as bait against them. But this season, Matt Benning has 0 points in 5 games. Now, I'm gonna say this, man. Is this really the guy that Montreal would be interested in? I don't know. Firstly, talk about the contract. Friedman says that Benning is signed on till 25-26, which would kind of deter the Canadiens from wanting to sign, or not sign, trade for this guy. They want somebody whose contract expires in 2025. They don't want any extra commitment for next year. For Matt Benning, though, I mean, you would have to force yourselves to get that extra year, and at the same time, you have to think, okay, next year, David Reinbacher is hopefully good enough to be a guy that challenges for a spot. Logan Mailloux, probably, hopefully, good enough to be an 82-game caliber guy. You would expect him to make the team. There are other defensemen rotating around in the prospect pool that could be there, which is why, obviously, they wouldn't want to get a player whose commitment to the team would last until 2026, like Matt Benning. But also, when you just think about the player acquisition itself, you think about the caliber of play, are you saying that Matt Benning is the guy that Montreal would be putting all their chips into? I mean, you look at the ice times, he's been averaging about, 14 minutes time on ice per game for the Sharks this year. He's a -5, which isn't, too bad considering it's San Jose and they've been losing all these games, but he has not played all of the San Jose Sharks games. He hasn't actually played in 10 days. He's not injured as far as I know. He's just not playing. Is this the guy who can't even crack the San Jose Sharks D-core that Montreal would potentially be interested in adding onto theirs? What, with all the other guys that are still in the system, the Strubels, the Xhekais, the Justin Barons, and the Mayus, would this guy in Matt Benning be the player to overthrow some of those guys in their development this season in favor of him? Is Benning a better option for Montreal to play and improve their team than giving Logan Mailloux a few extra reps, or Justin Barron when he's healthy? I don't think so, man. I know Friedman is just tossing out a name that could be in that style that they want. I mean, they said they want a forward with bite. Not necessarily a forward, but Matt Benning is a defenseman who can be physical at times, considering the fact that in his last full year with San Jose, 2022-2023, he did get around, let's say, 1 or 2 hits a game and 2 blocks a game. He was pretty strong as a defensively minded guy. But he hasn't had the sample size to show that he's still that in 2024-2025. So I do kind of question where Friedman is coming from, with Matt Benning in particular being the guy. But Friedman talked about it, which is why I wanted to respond to it in this video here, especially considering the fact that the Montreal Canadiens have the day off. Speaking about the Montreal Canadiens, I also wanted to add on this extra tidbit in the video. This isn't necessarily about the trade, we're hard segueing here, but staying on the track of what Elliotte Friedman was talking about in 32 Thoughts. Take a look at this other tweet by NHL Watcher. Friedman and Bukauskas discuss whether or not Cole Caufield makes Team USA in February. Friedman says on paper, Team USA is the best team, and Caufield is having a great start to the season, but it will still be tough. Now here's the thing with that. Cole Caufield, he's one of the top goal scorers in the NHL. He's been dominating in that respect. He's got only 1 assist though, which is very interesting. Not to say that it takes away from the quality of goals that he is scoring, it's just something you have to think about. Guys can score and guys can do things, but whether or not you're able to provide value to an international team that's not going to really see things the way that you see things in your own NHL team, that remains to be seen. If Team USA grabs onto Cole Caufield, they're not taking him because of his playmaking, or because of his grit, or because of his size. They're taking him because of his goal support. And the question is his goal support going to be strong enough to overtake the roles of other players around Team USA that could be a little bit more versatile? I don't want to say that Brock Boeser is a better goal scorer than Cole Caufield, but Boeser does a lot of other things that Caufield doesn't necessarily do, plus he's bigger. That's kind of the conversation you're going to have multiple times with Cole Caufield in regards to Team USA forwards. There are still other guys that could challenge for meaningful spots on the team. Alex DeBrincat's also lighting it up in Detroit. He's alongside his buddy Patrick Kane. There are some other names that could definitely challenge as younger dudes too. The other NTDP players, is Trevor Zegras and his playmaking a valuable add there? And where exactly do you slot Matthews, Jack Hughes, and Jack Eichel? Where do you place these guys? So the question isn't really as to whether or not he's going to be good enough, I'd say, to make Team USA, because I think he'll be good enough. The question is Team USA going to evaluate his game in a way that they see more valuable to their team than any of the other American forwards who bring arguably more to the table? Not necessarily in terms of goal scoring, but in terms of everything else around goal scoring. It's a tough conversation to have, but I do think it is interesting to bring up, considering the amount of names that Team USA will have available to their roster. They are one of, if not the absolute best teams in hockey right now, if you wanted to just make rosters in a fantasy-like capacity. And Cole Caufield being on the team or not, it doesn't take away from how good of a goal scorer he is for Montreal. It just depends on where Team USA sees that. So I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Elliotte Friedman revealing a Canadiens trade target in Matt Benning. Do you think this should be a guy that they end up taking a look at? If so, what do you think the price should be in a trade? If not, whom do you think the Canadiens should target instead? Also, what are your thoughts on Cole Caufield and his chances of making Team USA? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on, and bye.